Alright, what I'm going to do today is to talk about the different network hardware, and here are some objectives that you might want to take a look at. When we look at the network hardware, we will divide them into two things. One is local networking hardware and internetworking hardware. What I mean by local networking hardware is to connect the clients together. That is meant as the local networking hardware. In other words, when I say local, you are basically connecting. Let's say you have a switch that would connect different computers together. This is a local networking hardware. But on the other hand, you can also have internetworking hardware where you would connect networks together. The devices that you can use, for example, you can use a switch to connect two different networks. You can use a router to connect two different networks. So that's the difference I'll talk about. Here are some examples: network interface cards, NICs. Nowadays you don't see many of them. Why is that so? Because they are all built into your computer. You have cables. The most important cable that you will come across today is known as the twisted pair cable. We went over it. Connectors. Here are the important things about connectors. There are different types of connectors. If I tell you B and C, then you should know where that connector goes to. B and C goes with thin coaxial cable. If I say RJ45, that connection or that cable or connectors go with twisted pairs. RJ11 is a twisted pair phone wire connection. Then we have line drivers and repeaters. That's the one that you see here. We have line drivers and repeaters that are used for extending the distance between two nodes. For example, the distance from a switch to a client has a certain limitation because the electrical signals cannot travel when they are connected directly to one another. So what do? If you want to extend the distance from a hub or a switch to a node, then you will use something called line drivers and repeaters. The next thing is when you want to set up networks, you will use something called switches, as I have shown you here. This incidentally is a switch. You will use a switch. Nowadays we don't use hubs. Hubs are old technology to connect the different computers together, and these are twisted pair wires. And this connection here is known as the RJ45. Usually the RJ45 is a thicker 8 wire connection. In comparison, something similar is RJ11. That is, sorry, it's not there. The RJ11 is used where? RJ11 is used in phone wires. Phone. Alright, RJ11 is used in phone wires. So these are some of the things that you need to know when I talk about. Then we have servers and workstations. If we have time today, we will go into Dell server and take a look at the Dell server. Workstations, of course, you are familiar with. Nowadays, what is the latest processor that is used on Windows machines? Is it the Pentium dual core, quad core, something better than that? A later version? What is the latest Intel processor? The Intel processor is i7. i7. You have processors such as i7 and i5 and so on. Alright, so bear in mind, we will talk about those things as well. Now, internetworking hardware is the hardware that is used for connecting networks together, when you are connecting two networks together. Here is an example. Let's say that you have one network here. There is another network here. If we want to connect these two networks, we will use an internetworking hardware. What would this be in this case? It would be a router. It would be a router. And in this particular case, we also call something that is separated by both. This one would be a subnet. A router usually connects dissimilar networks together. So this one would be a subnet. This is subnet 1, and this is subnet 2. Those who have studied the communication course will understand that. And you can also use a switch as an internetworking device. You can have another switch connected together. So basically you can have multiple switches this way, connecting networks together. In this case there is no routing, so these two networks, these are not subnets, they are of the same network, they are same. So network 1 and network 2 are similar. They are similar, keep in mind. Now mostly confined, current day internet working devices are mostly confined to switches and routers. In the past we had things like gateways, name it, bridges, gateways and all kinds of stuff. Today these are the two things. I will give you an example later on. Then there is called manageable devices. What is a manageable devices? Write this name down. This is the protocol that is used for managing networking devices. It is called SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol. What does it exactly mean? Let's say this is a campus network. You have, in this case, a router. Then we have a switch. And we have another router here. Then we have a switch. And so on. Now let's say that this is the computer center. This is the computer center. And this is your lab here. Sometimes there can be something wrong. Something went wrong in the switch. Actually we can monitor this switch. Monitor this switch from where? From a computer by using a LAN management software. We can monitor the switch from further down using a LAN management software. In order to do that, you will run this software, and you will also be using the simple network management protocol, and this switch here is now known as a manageable device. Why? You can manage it from another computer. You understand that? So this switch must be a manageable device supporting, for example, the SNMP protocol. This is extremely useful in large organizations where one computer can be almost half a mile away.